Join us on our Discord, the Greater Mandala. For access, sign up to the Order of Fire's mailing list.
All right, you are listening to or watching PH2T3R Pater, the Journal of Solar Culture, and I'm here as always with my co-host C.B. Robertson, author of many fine books. And today we're going to talk about style. And this actually came from a conversation that CB and I were having because we like talking so much that we talk for 2 hours in the show and then we talk for like a half hour afterwards sometimes. And so we started to have a conversation and it came up somehow. And I started giving him a lecture on the difference between style and fashion. And he's like, I've never heard that before. And so I'll tell you what I told him and then I'll tell you, I did some more investigation and have some more thoughts about that since then. But basically, why you should listen to me. I did actually go to school for fashion design originally. I didn't finish in fashion design, but I did a year in that. And that was really something I was super passionate about as a kid in a small rural town in the middle of nowhere, watching 80s movies in the 80s. Like dreaming of going to the big city in New York where everything is cool and awesome and getting away from, I literally lived beside a cornfield and it was perfect 80s movie scene, some Michael J. Fox shit or something. But so I went to school in New York City to see the big life. So for years before that, trying to get into school to go to fashion design, I was doing all kinds of research of things and it just was really, I felt like I was in a small town and no one knew about this, and it was exotic and interesting. And it was a time when that was a big deal. That was a time of like supermodels and like Jean-Paul Gaultier and all that was in the news and everything. Now no one really cares as much. You don't see as much about it. But it was a big moment for that kind of thing. So I was really excited about all that kind of stuff. And so I went to school for fashion in New York City. And so I eventually left because I transferred to fine arts. Because they would not let me do menswear, which is a blessing because whatever I would have done at 18, 19 years old would have been the opposite of what I would do now. I was always interested in masculinity and sex and whatever, but all my answers at that point were wrong. so it would what I would have come up with at that point would not be what I would do now, but. The point is that they were like, no, menswear is like the secondary thing that you can just pick up. It's like whatever. Women's wear is what's important. It's where it's at. So you learn the whole thing on women basically. And then like, if you want to learn how to like do suits or whatever they do, you can figure that out. It's like a secondary thing. All the excitement in that industry is about women because men's clothes don't change as much. And there are a lot of reasons for that. We can talk about that during the show. But one of the things that I was saying, and this is just from looking at things over the years and reading things about style and fashion and whatever, and I think Chris said something about fashion, and I said no. I was like no. In my mind, and I think in a lot of people's mind, it's not like I'm in a vacuum where I'm the only person who says this. In my mind, when I hear about fashion, I think of disposability. Like a fashion magazine, fashion shows, whatever. They're really made to have, like a big trend, basically a fad. They're creating a fad aesthetic that they are actually going to say, this is amazing. Everything about this is amazing. And everything they write about it would be like, this is insane. This is fantastic. This is so right now. I mean, the Mugatu thing is not that far off. But that is actually how the industry is. Like silver vinyl is so right now. But then 2 years later, they'll be like, I cannot believe anyone is wearing silver vinyl. It's planned obsolescence in the industry, and that's because it's like neophilia. Obviously they have to create new products. They're not trying to create a shirt that you can wear for 20 years. They're trying to create something that you have to buy the new thing next year. And especially for women, it's like they want to be, women really don't follow fashion for men because men actually don't care. about what women wear. They just want them to look sexy or cute or whatever, but they don't care if like they have the latest so and so designer or whatever. That's women competing with each other, like that their status competition. Like they're like, oh, she's wearing the new look, and that's really and also that's very urban as well. Like that's less the case. But I mean, actually, I can say like growing up in a town beside a cornfield, I remember at least in the '80s and early '90s, all the girls at school knew exactly what store you were supposed to shop in and what brands you're supposed to wear. So that's still that was still a thing then, and I'm sure it's probably still a thing now. Of certain things, just different brands. I mean, I see kids at the gym, and they're all wearing like a certain brand of like gym clothes that's really popular and stuff like that. So these trends and things still exist. But so when I hear about fashion, I think of this disposability culture. And this kind of like following the trends, and it feels very superficial. And men just like kind of like are grossed out by it. They just see it. They're like they just see people following these mindless trends, and men is like that's for women to do. That we don't want to deal with that. And then style, I think, is the way that I define it, and then we'll talk about some more thoughts that I have. But the way that I was talking to Chris about it originally was that when I think of style, I think of more of a personal style. That you have a look. Like if you follow my Instagram or whatever, like I have a vibe. Like there's certain things that like, well, that's what Jack Donovan would wear. That makes sense. It's like style I think of as being, and so much of its culture obviously comes from aristocrats and the higher ups who have disposable income, but it's like anything else. Men will do this with cars. They'll do it with guns. Like basically, you get to a level of detail in your understanding of a thing where you develop very specific tastes. Like this is how I think this should look. I've seen 300 of them. This is the way that I want this to look. People do men do it with cars. I had some like gay guy many years ago say this, and I thought it was the best quote. He says, dudes just need something to trick out. It doesn't matter if it's their hair or it's a car or whatever. They need something to trick out. And I'm like, that is so on point.
Very true.
It's just different dudes speak different things. And so style is one of those things that I think when it comes to like your visual appearance, you develop this vocabulary over time because you know all the details. Like if you've looked at it for a long time, you know all the details, and you're like, I like this and I don't like this, and you get to have like a very discerning taste. And it's the same as I know what cocktails I like because I've been out to a lot of really fine restaurants over the years, and I've tried them all, and I'm like, no, I like this, and you get this very distinctive taste of like this is what I like, there's this is what I like because I was raised with it. My mom made me eat broccoli and I didn't like broccoli. And like this very base level of that a lot of people have. And then there is, I actually have tried everything. And these are the things that I like. And that's what becomes like, that's your distinctive palate. And then that carries over to any of these other things.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of guns, I remember our mutual friend, Greg Hamilton, talking about how everyone should start with a Glock, not because they're the best or anything, but because it will get you started and then you'll figure out what you like. And I think the same thing could be said with your clothing you wear. My introduction, it's funny you brought up urbanites, because my sort of introduction to style was through a girlfriend actually at college. I was the worst combination of like soccer jock and like outdoors hiker. So I would come to school in like basketball shorts and like those like they're kind of enclosed sandals with the mesh, the antimicrobial that could be trail running shoes, but they're like the sort of hybrid thing. And it literally, I wore these on a day I was meeting my girlfriend at the time, and it literally almost brought her to tears. She thought they were so ugly, and she had been raised mostly in Paris.
Okay.
So she educated me on how I should really dress, and my wife now said, like, I'm glad you got trained on this. You dress a lot better now, with proper fit and stuff. But like that was sort of a just going along with what I was told in a way,
Right.
just picking up the Glock, proverbially speaking. I really became cognizant of this, not with clothing, but with tools. As an electrician, I was working on a job site with a foreman, and I had a screwdriver out. And us electricians will with long flathead screwdrivers will wrap the shaft with electrical tape to insulate it. Funny stories when people have the kind with the metal back, so they'll go and push it thinking it's insulated and shock themselves anyways. But I had this screwdriver wrapped with electrical tape to make it insulated. And I was working on something in a panel, and my journeyman said, you should get a real set of insulated screwdrivers at some point. And I said, well, okay. Out of curiosity, why? I mean, doesn't this work just as well? And he's like, it does, but only mechanically. If you are talking with a customer or with a foreman, your tools convey the seriousness and the professionalism that they will interpret in you. And so when you buy more serious tools, it conveys that professionalism to the customer and to the foreman, and perhaps even to yourself to a certain degree. I'm like, that is kind of smart. It is a very different way of thinking about tools, because many guys can get very like Miyamoto Musashi about it. A tool is a tool. You should be able to drop it and move on and all this other stuff. But there is a sense of style and a conveyance of appearance in your choice of tools. And some of that can also be fashion too, and not style. Certain kinds of tools come into fashion, and it's not the same industry because those guys are a lot more practically minded, but there is still some kind of visual competition there. And there's a balance. I spray paint all my tools to try to deter tool thieves, which is a problem in the construction world. So there's a degree of professionalism and also a bit of and it's spray painted pink. I spray painted my last set red, and that didn't stop things. So, the replacement set is now pink. But that principle of choosing your tools not just based on their function, but how they appear to other tradesmen, and how they appear to a customer who's maybe not or just a layperson who's maybe not as familiar with these things. Like you've tricked out your car, so other street racers and car nerds will recognize the coolness, but maybe a regular person on the street won't see why your 1989 Honda Civic is so badass under the hood, but a fellow street racer would. But who's your audience? And then you yourself are maybe the third audience or the first, depending on how you count it. And it's not just tools. It's not just cars. It's not just guns. It's not just clothing. It's all kinds of things.
Yeah. The tool thing, that was a really cool example. And I happen to have it almost in arm's reach. But I literally, in watching a photography video, all the how-tos I watch to learn things. I heard a photographer say kind of the same thing. Like, why do you get one of these? And I mean, this is a neutral density filter that has an actual function and purpose. And this is, it might keep the sun out, but you look like a baller when you go in with this. That's not just a camera anymore. You look like you know what you're doing. To a customer that's like, oh, they've got some gear. They're serious. And he literally said that in the video. I was like, that's the exact same thing that you were talking about. It looks like, oh, okay, all right, we're dealing with a pro here. And so Whereas, you could probably do a lot of the work with like a much more basic camera and a much more basic if you really are good.
Yeah.
But, people like to see, if you come in with like this thing that has a cage and all this stuff coming off of it, people would be like, oh, all right.
Yeah. So I was actually at a sales conference, and the speaker, it was specifically for tradesmen. The speaker was talking about why do people listen to doctors, and she said, well, it's partially because they're in their doctor outfit, their magical wizard garb, but they also have their diploma on the wall right there.
Right.
And me, in my head, a lot of the electricians are required to have their card on their body, either on a lanyard or on their arm or something at all times. Many of the service guys don't wear them. They're supposed to, but they don't because it's annoying or whatever. But it made me think, and I ended up asking him, it's like, are you saying we should be wearing our card more often? Not because we have to, but because it does what the doctor's diploma on the wall does.
Yeah.
And he said, that's actually a pretty good idea. Yeah, that would be one takeaway. So ever since that conference, I've been wearing my card on my arm the way you're supposed to, but the way that many service techs don't, precisely because it conveys that that expertise. It brings just one more layer of the appearance of professionalism and competence to your customer in that case. And again, this is like broader, but I think the problem, it's funny thinking about this subject in relation to some of the conversations we've had in the past about Plato and Socrates and so forth, because so much of the philosophy argument is over this supposed ostensible tension between dialectic, pure logic and reason on one hand, and rhetoric, persuasion on the other. And there's the classic fight between the philosophers and the sophists is between like logic and rhetoric, emotional manipulation. And it can feel like there's a similar sense of tension among men in particular between, do you want to be good or do you only want to appear good? As if the two are mutually exclusive. Right. And like, as competent as you may be, you're not hurting your competence by putting in, 5 minutes of extra effort to bring the appearance of confidence on along the way. Why not turn up the dial a little bit on your influence? Because I don't mean to sound like a sales bro. Like, I go to one conference and now I'm talking the talking point. But like
goes to one conference. Yes.
Yeah, but like at the end of the day, like our everyone's job is in some sense to solve other people's problems, to bring other people peace of mind in some way. And conveying competence is a part of that. It allows other people's to relax a little bit, be like, okay, they've got it. So like being good at your job is a given, as a necessity. You need to be good at your job, and no amount of style and fashion and the appearance of power can make up for the absence of competence and power and skill where it's needed. However, even if you have all the competence and skill in the world, other people might still be a little bit nervous. So that there's no reason these things need to actually be mutually exclusive.
Well, and also giving two guys of equal competence, the one who looks more competent wins.
Right.
Yeah, so like if you're both skilled and whatever, and the same thing would go with, as you were saying, rhetoric. The best communicator will probably also do better. The guy who could come and be like, well, yes, this is what we're going to do, and and explain what he is going to do and why he's going to be good at doing it really well, versus the guy who is like, yeah, so whatever, we got a thing, and I can get this done. Yeah, he might be really competent.
But
he might be more competent, but yeah, you wouldn't know. And so,
yeah.
and what this all comes back to, to circle back to the main thing is that appearance is communication. you are saying something about yourself all the time. And as Tanner will say, he said he might watch this, or maybe he was just giving us a bump. I don't know. But one of the things that he always says, and I've always said, is like by not saying anything, you're saying something too. You know, like, so by showing that you don't care about what you look like, you are also saying something. So you're communicating no matter what you do. But before we jump into more about that, because the whole really conversation is about communication, because that's what you're doing is visually communicating. And that's why guys get so hung up on it, because they think of, as you know, I talked about sex pollution and all the things about like when women do something, men don't want to do it. And there's also a thing about women being associated with artifice, you know, in terms of like fake eyelashes and like bidding on this fake stuff that make them look different than they are. And dudes just want to appear like, I am competent, I am like who I am, and straightforward. And so they think of, when they think of communicating in this way, they think of it being artificial and right. And kind of, you know, like it goes into the feminine for them. And that can be true, and that can be done that way, or it can be handled really well. But one of the things I wanted to jump into, because I talked about style and fashion, that's interesting because we are both word nerds, and I then went and looked them up. Because I'm like, well, where am I getting this? I get it. My definitions come culturally for that, because I have a lot of experience in talking about that with people who are interested in it, and reading about it and whatever. It's probably, you know, my definition of fashion and style probably came from me reading fucking GQ in like 1980. You know, like it's because I really did. Like I was the little kid like ordering that from home. Like what do the people in the real world do? But so, you know, I have all this kind of background I'm talking about, but what's interesting is that those words actually mean the same thing. Both of them are about making. Basically, fashion, to fashion something. I mean, that comes from the you know, it comes, that's what that word means. It's like it's a making of a thing, and shaping it. And style comes from the root, like a stylus, like what you write with. So it comes from, again, like you're writing something, you're making something with that. So they both actually kind of mean the same thing, like at least etymologically.
Yeah.
And
we've
so
arrived at different connotations in the present moment.
Exactly. Like people who talk about both. I mean, usually when you talk about fashion, you're talking about something more temporary, and you're talking about style. You're talking about like, she has amazing style, or he has amazing style, or you're talking about someone who has like, they've had a style their whole lifetime. Like you can take, and that's that when the upper classes and the people who care about this stuff and write about it all the time, you know, they would. Person that comes to mind immediately, because they always used to fawn over her, probably for political reasons too, but was like Jacqueline Kennedy was known for having fantastic personal style. She always had a look, you know, like she was going to look a certain way all the time. And a lot of the old Hollywood movie actresses, like they had a look. They were always going to look a certain way, and a lot of a lot of Hollywood movie actors and so forth, and then obviously people who were more in the upper classes and so forth are also known for having a very distinctive style. But yeah, I just thought it was an interesting point that really those words don't mean anything different, and they both and the idea that they actually both are kind of active creative words.
Yeah, well, it implies it almost begs the prefix on style, self-style. Because with fashion, you're fashioning your own appearance. With style, you are styling yourself. Unless you're following a fashion magazine, in which case maybe someone else is doing it. Who knows? But it's how you appear, regardless of who you're taking advice from or whether you're doing it yourself. So
right, and if you're being styled, really, there's a certain amount of, I guess, you know, if someone styles you for long enough, you're probably good. That's your look now. You know, like you get locked into it. Yeah. But, I mean, if you're being styled, that's one thing. And I actually took a class on being a stylist, actually, at one point in college. But if you're being styled, that's one thing. A lot of Hollywood movie actors are like, here's what you're wearing. You know, like, you don't get to pick it out. Like, here's what you're wearing. They have people for that. But then there are other people who have their own style, and that's something that like as we were talking about earlier is something that comes from trying things and being like, I look stupid in those pants. Things that are cut like that, I look dumb in them. These are not flattering. Because honestly, like with the way that you dress, like you said, there's communication and everything, and so there's certain things you want to wear because you think they look cool, but then they look stupid on you. Like that. There's lots of things that I just can't wear that I think look cool as hell, and I'd love to wear them. But like, I'm like, yeah, I'm not built that way. I can't really pull that off, or just like, I'm past my time of life to wear that, or not to that time of life yet. I'm not gonna wear. I kind of think shawl collared sweaters are cool, but that's not my vibe. I'm not gonna throw that out. But there's all kinds of like little details like that you can pick, and I think there's, like I said, there's all these rules. We could go into so many different things on this about, because I could talk about it forever. But the main idea is that you're communicating a character, and that's not to get into the like artifice thing and like being fake, but like, who are you? And is what you're wearing consistent with that? And that's what you're really just trying to create. Like what? Oh, this is one thing I wanted to say is that when we talk about archetypes and things, you're making visual references to things in the way that you can do this very artfully and subtly. You don't have to be like, I'm wearing a costume. Like, like this shirt, which we'll talk about maybe a little more later, but this shirt, like has a vague Indiana Jones vibe, which was kind of the point. There's an explorer adventurer thing, but I'm not. The guy said, one of the Instagram commenters, like, all you need is a satchel and whatever to like finish the look. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not. This is not Halloween. Like, I'm not dressed up as Indiana Jones. What I am doing is making a visual reference to an idea and an archetype that you have seen in a movie and understand. So you're associating that with me, and I'm trying to communicate that to you. So by picking something that looks vaguely like that, I'm calling up something in your imagination and associating it with myself.
Yeah.
And so and I don't think men ever think about it like that. Some men do, but like, I think it's very rare for men to think like that you're making a visual reference to a character that everyone knows. Like, oh, that's a little bit that, or that's a little bit that guy, or that's a little bit like, you're making a little reference to thing, and that doesn't mean you're trying to be that person, but you're maybe making references to 5 different things.
You're trying to
there's all this communication,
an association.
Yeah. There's all these little cues that you're setting out to people, and you're not trying to like dress up in a costume to be somebody else, but you're saying like, I want to show that I'm kind of associate myself with adventure and masculinity in that way, but not necessarily like there are a million other different kinds of adventurous masculinity, and this suits me a little bit better. And so like
suits.
Exactly, good word. But it suits the rest of my aesthetic, because I'm also referencing. I have kind of Scandinavian mid-century modern like aesthetics that I like a lot, and so that it goes well with those. It's like you're mixing all these things that go well together, and that's the art of it, is creating your own personal style. Is you're like, well, how do I put these things that I like, or reference things that I like, and bring them all into harmony? And there is no like formula. Guys always want formulas for things of how you do that, but that's an art. Like that is the art of it. Is like someone who has great personal style isn't actually just like, well, when I wear these kind of pants, then I wear this kind of shirt, and that's not how it works. That's why men like suits, because there were rules. There were basically like, one never wears whatever, like white after Labor Day or whatever. Like, there's certain things that one just does not do. But we don't live in really that society anymore. You can do whatever you want. So,
However, while there aren't rules for guys who are getting into style, maybe after having ignored it for most of their life, maybe
right.
more me than you, there are certain guidelines that can serve as training wheels to sort of get you off the ground. Um, and that for me, thinking more specifically about clothes as opposed to cars or watches or guns or anything else like that. Tanner Guzzi's book, the Appearance of Power, was helpful with his three sort of primary archetypes, and I'm sure you could probably list more if you wanted to. But the whole rugged, refined, rakish
Right.
trinity sort of is at least a starting point. It feels like a useful framework to sort of begin to figure out, okay, what appearances are congruent with who I actually am, and conveying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to start the conversation because a lot of guys just have never even had this conversation. You know, like they never really think about it. They just like wear. I mean, it's typical. Guys will wear what they thought was cool in high school, and then just unless they have to change for a job, they basically just continue wearing that like indefinitely until their wife tells them that they look like garbage and they need to like change, or like some other cue sends them to look at it. But a lot of guys will just coast on who they were in high school, which makes you kind of juvenile. And we're in a very casual society. We're not in a formal society where people have to know about suits and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know about I have one suit. It was custom made for me years ago. It probably doesn't fit me now. And it would be an ordeal because I can't buy stuff off the rack because, I'm a little jacked. But yeah, I mean, there's one of the things I guess to start with that I think a lot of men don't see in terms of what's flattering and not flattering on them generally is that as a man, in the way that women are probably trying to make their boobs look bigger or like trying to look like smaller waist and look a little curvier, what you're doing is enhancing secondary sex characteristics. So what you want to have an eye for is to what makes your shoulders look bigger. And men don't even think about that. Like that, like a lot of them, they'll just like, oh, I like this because so and so wore it, which is a visual reference. So that's not wrong. But little things like light colors expand and dark colors recede, which is why a lot of guys wear nothing but black shirts because chunky guys, that makes that kind of less obvious. Whereas a chunky guy in like a bright orange shirt is extra chunky, guys who want to hide a little bit of that stuff, they find that and also they don't have to think about matching if they wear black, right?
Now I have a visual question.
Right.
To what degree is that understanding subconsciously present in viewers? I.e., if you are a skinny person, does it accentuate your skinniness by wearing lighter color shirts?
No, the opposite. Because they expand. Skinny people can get away with wearing super light colors. Like I'm never gonna wear white pants. I have big, thick legs and a big ass, and like I can't wear white pants. Okay. Like really light colored pants. I mean, it's pretty like it makes me disproportionate. But like a skinny guy can wear white pants, like really light colors like that, because he can afford to expand.
Well, that's what I mean. I guess another example was this is something Tanner wrote last year, I think, if I remember correctly. He was talking about a trend of men wearing higher waisted pants, which is sort of a throwback to like the 40s or something like that.
He was totally into it. I was totally against it, but yes.
But like one of the points, I don't remember all the details of it. My wife was really pushing me to get into that, and I was like, But one of the points he pointed out is that one of the reasons it's so striking and that the look can work is that only certain kinds of people can pull that off. Like you can't pull that off if you're fat, obviously.
Right.
So if you are wearing that and you are pulling it off, it instantly visually conveys not just what you are, but also what you are not in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's true. I mean, I think that only would have worked in like I don't think it would have been fit your blue collar vibe. I don't think it would have fit that. But more, if you're more in that industry, you're going out and doing business meetings or stuff like that. That might be more something that would make more sense. But like it wouldn't work for me either. Like that would never be my vibe. I could probably pull it off. I guess I could look a little Gene Kelly-ish, which that kind of would go in that way. But yeah, but that's a thing that was like, that is true. Well, and unfortunately, we live in a society where everybody actually wears shit that they shouldn't wear. I mean, most people, because like everyone wears like stretchy exercise clothes. And most people are not in shape enough to wear, like, you don't need to be wearing something that's skin tight. Like most dudes do not need to be wearing like Lycra and whatever, like all the time. Well, Lycra, I mean, could be anything. This has Lycra in it probably, but, or spandex, whatever. But it's, it's things that are really tight and clingy. Yeah, like even like, honestly, a wife beater. I know they're supposed to be called wife lovers now, but I don't. Although I do think it struck me at how odd that a garment has been associated with domestic abuse. Like that, if you think about like how did that happen? I mean, I could picture the guy who they're talking about in my mind.
Oh yeah,
there's this guy with a can of beer outside wearing his wife beater, and like, Denise, get your ass in here. Yeah, you can totally see it. But it's funny that a garment became associated with the domestic abuse. But
he's drinking a 40.
Like a wife beater, they run tight, and like I was in a picture on one today, but like there's a level of body fat I can't have and wear a wife beater because it'll just be like, here are my love handles. Like you could wear a wife beater whenever, but there are a lot of guys like they're not the most flattering on. Because they run tight, and then there's a look like we're like kind of a cholo kind of look where like they wear them, but like the guys are fat, so you can see their belly buttons in them, and like it just looks trashy, and stuff like it's so. Yeah, just being cognizant of like how something hangs on you and how it falls on you, and like what your body type is, can you pull something off? Because really, and Tanner will say this, and I think any person who is into that will know. I mean, like fit is very important in things, and like if something doesn't fit you properly, it doesn't matter if it was like $1,000. It just you look like you're wearing somebody else's clothes, or like you look sloppy anyway. I could be wearing a $1,200 shirt, and if it's not the right size or like it doesn't look right for me, then it's not a good shirt.
Well, so we had talked before about how there are no rules, but there are some like rules of thumb, some kind of best practices that you're speaking of sort of offhand, casually, as if this is like, oh, you can look this up in common knowledge. But when I was reading Tanner Guzzi's book, there was some stuff that stuck out to me that in retrospect seems obvious, but was actually news because I had never thought of this before. About how, for example, if you're wearing a shirt with vertical stripes on them, that visually expands your body upward and it brings you in that way. And conversely, if you're wearing like prison stripes, like horizontal bars, that has the opposite effect. So something I had known before was that if you have a long, narrow face, then your sunglasses should be, more wide and narrow, or am I getting that backwards, to offset that, to balance things out? Certain shapes of sunglasses correspond with and complement different face shapes. And so like what are some rules, some basic rules of thumb like that with fashion that like that were there any like when you learn them, you're like, oh, I can do a lot with this, and that surprised you. Because the stripes one was like so obvious in retrospect, but it actually caught me off guard. I'm like, wow, I've never thought of that before. And then,
Yeah,
like,
to me,
I'm
I've
going
known that
back
since
and
I was like
looking over-
14. So like, yeah, so like I was like, but no, you're right.
I don't know when
most
I'm
guys,
like 30.
yeah, most women are probably taught that at some point, or they find that out or whatever. But like a lot of guys have never thought of that. I mean, like, but yeah, I knew that really early, so that kind of stuff almost escapes me. But that is one of the things. Yeah, I mean, it's like you see a dude and like a big chunky guy wearing like horizontal stripes you're not helping. You know, like that's not helping. So I mean that is a big one. I think like I said, like something that fits you well is the most important thing. But those two visual things about expanding and that you want to, as a man, and I guess a lot of men don't think about this, but I look at stuff like all the time. Even when I look at rash guards designed for jiu-jitsu, I'm like, why is it white right here? Like, why is this dark? Why are your shoulders dark and this white? That's a terrible idea. Who thought about that? But it's like the designers are just like, I want to make something that looks rad. And they're not thinking like,
they're thinking about jiu-jitsu. They're not thinking about
that guy's gut is going to look like gigantic in that rash guard because you just put a super light color down here. I got one from actually Origin one time that I'm like, I can't even wear this and I'm in good shape. Because I've seen guys in bad shape wearing them, but it had like a gold swirl around it, but the gold swirl came like right down like through here, and then the shoulders were like dark, and I'm like, that is a terrible idea. I know that's their logo, and they thought it would be cool, but like you just actually just made a big directional point to some dude's love handles. You know, like that's terrible because most
arrow.
Yeah, I mean, because most guys, and you could say like, well, they should all be in great shape, but like most dudes are not like in the gym 24 hours a day, and some dudes run lean like you, and some guys don't. Like I have to work really hard not to be a chunkster, and so it's like you have to realize most guys are not going to they're not going to be walking around with a six pack all the time. And right. So, like, if that's the case, if they are, then yeah, you can fucking show that off and be like, and not show that off. Tanner would be very like horrified if I made it look like you should like show that you have a six pack because he hates the people who wear stuff so tight that you can see it all the time because he thinks it looks desperate. But you know, like you can definitely wear stuff that shows that you can. And in the way that we were talking about tight pants, you can definitely wear stuff that shows that yes, I can get away with this because like I'm not fat. You know, so I can wear this, whereas like a lot of guys couldn't, and that is one thing for sure. I wanted to talk about with visual communication because you know we're very theory based in this show. I mean, more than like anything, but like with visual communication, there's also an element of authenticity that I'm super aware of, and that's just because you like a thing doesn't mean that you are it.
Right.
Or that you can carry that off. Men are very aware of this, and I'm always very aware of it when I put my image forward in public, is that like there was a huge trend a few years ago of, and there still is, I think, like hipsters would basically appropriate working class clothes. Like Carhartts,
the flannels.
Carhartts, but yeah, before that it was the lumberjack look. It was like lumberjacks, and then it went to Carhartts. And like, if you're a dude with a curly mustache who like who like clearly like has probably never even been camping, you do not know how to wield an axe. Like, don't come on, there's dudes. I don't think like. I feel sufficiently outdoorsy that I can wear a flannel shirt that looks lumberjacky and not feel like I'm a big poser. Just because I have a lot of other masculine signature things that whatever. But some little guy who's never been to the gym, never done any hard work in his life, whatever, doing a lumberjack look is ridiculous. It's totally inauthentic. It's totally ridiculous. Yeah. and as you said, like the Carhartt thing became a thing. It's like that is, you know, for dudes who actually work for a living. Like, that's not for you who are literally like you work at like the front desk of like a hotel. You know, like that's not for you. And so but again, we're all, like I said, all this is really about communication. So it's about creating a personal style for yourself, and displaying that is really about consistent communication. Like, can you back that up? I mean, are you?
So it begins with kind of owning your identity, because if you do work the front desk of a hotel, there is a way to own that and to communicate that in your dress, and be like, yeah, I'm not some like burly drunk redneck, and I'm not some pretentious yuppie. There's a way to own that in a way that's positive and confident, maybe not crapping on other people the way I was just sort of imitating there, but like, it feels like so much of the fashion as opposed to style is after this chasing after trying to become someone you're not, and not even become, chasing after appearing to be someone you're not, rather than conveying who you are in the best possible way.
Yeah, and what we would call style, even though they mean the same thing, but as what I would call style would be like, communicating consistently. And what we've, like in the group, I would say with the Order of Fire, I like all my friends to be easily drawn into graphic novel characters. Because if someone thinks of you and you could be easily drawn into a graphic novel character, you have personal style. Because you have a look. Like that is what he comes in. That's what he looks like. Whatever. I mean, someone from the internet's going to be like, Jack Donovan has brown pants and doesn't wear a shirt. Like it's, and like that's what they've seen, and that would be my character. But that's not all I wear, and not what I look like. But that's a big part of it.
And within the order, like Vic and Michael immediately jump to mind.
Oh, for sure.
As like
yeah.
We have our Viking and we have our international man in black of mystery. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah, and he's very aware. I mean, Vic picks everything. He's has a consistent aesthetic that runs through everything that he does. Like it's his total personality, and that's really what you're doing. You're men think of this as being fake. And really what it should be is creating this authentic narrative about yourself that you actually are. I mean, because Nick can back up, and Vic can back up all the stuff that he does. And so like, but he has a look. He wants to be the man in black and do the thing, and then he has the black car to match. And then he has the black motorcycle with the sidecar for his black dog. Like he has it all lined up, and it all makes visual sense together, and that's one of those things I said, like, it's an art. You have to develop that vocabulary and try things and see what you like, and this is what I like. Like, I'll talk about the shirt a little bit since I was going to. I mean, this is the adventure shirt that the Order of Fire brand is going to come out with.
Speaking of that shirt, we have one comment expressing sincere disappointment to find out that you are not, in fact, the real Indiana Jones.
Well, sorry. So the shirt itself, I basically, I knew what I wanted because I have a pretty developed sense of taste and like inspiration, what my character is. And I wanted something, but like I would order it and like the fit would be bad, or like it was in the wrong fabric, or there were details that were off that I didn't like. It's like you can get a shirt kind of like this anywhere. Like there's probably 10 like on Amazon right now, but I don't like any of them, and I've probably ordered some of them. And so I eventually was like, well, I'm just gonna make the shirt that I like, and if people like it, then that's fine. So I had some prototypes run and went through like 3 iterations of it until I got the manufacturing company to give me exactly what I wanted in the right fabric and the right things. And there's like one or two things I would change if I had to do a second run. But I really like it. It's a cool shirt. It's what I was looking for. I was really stoked about it. But one of the details about it, I wanted something that had a more athletic fit than like you can buy a lot of shirts that look like this, but they're like Walmart fit. So like they're basically straight down. They fit like a tent, and you know, because they're for fucking fat guys. You know, and I try to not be a fat guy, and so you know, I wanted something, but I also wanted, because I'm not perfect, and I wanted it in a thicker fabric, because a thin fabric, and I guess this is one of those rules you were talking about, I have to like pull them out of conversation because they're just kind of how I think, but a lot of times a thinner fabric, especially stretchy fabrics, like I said, but thinner fabrics will catch details that maybe you don't want to catch. You know, like like you think about a lot of guys. I mean, you don't have this problem probably at all, but like a lot of guys, they thought they looked good that day, and then they took a picture in which they stood funny, and then like, oh, you looked sloppy and gross. You looked fat and gross and fucked up. You know, like because you had this shirt that was too thin and it caught your love handle and like wrapped around it and the fabric stuck on it. You know, like it's just a thing that I've noticed over the years. But if you look at a lot of like uniforms, uniforms usually use like a thicker fabric.
The first time I saw your prototype of this adventure shirt, it immediately made me think of the naval NSU, the naval service uniform, which is a slightly lighter color, and it has some like stitching stripes down the middle, so it's not exactly the same, but kind of similar, and also that thicker material like you were talking about.
Yeah, and if you look at you know, like the red cap uniforms, I mean, that's the brand, right? Isn't it Red Cap, something like that? It's like Dickies, but like there's a few brands that are like the ones that if you have to buy a uniform for a job, they're made out of those. But and they all have, like Dickies. Dickies is a perfect example. Not only is it rugged, so you don't have to throw it away, but it is. It's rugged, so they don't want you to look like a slob when you go out and represent them in public.
Exactly.
And so to do that, they have a thicker fabric. And because it hangs straight. You know, like it's going to hang straight and not catch on everything and like be weird. It's going to hang straight. It's going to hang flat. You're going to look like a solid representative of the company. And so like it's just, and that's. And that is a military thing as well. You know, it's like the military uniforms and so forth. They want things to hang flat, look pressed, have your shit together, look professional, right? So, and then you know, in the upscale world, then you know, looking professional could be thin fabrics, and like you have so much money that you can have everything dry cleaned and everything looks perfect anyway. But you know, I think and these shirts actually need to be ironed. Like I found after I washed it, I was like, okay, I need to iron this after, you know, every time. So that is a thing. But yeah, so that was one of my stipulations. And the first one I got was like this, but it was a thick fabric, but it didn't stretch, and I couldn't get out of it because I got my arms into it, and then I couldn't get my arms back out. So I have to be peeled out of it. And I'm like, well, this isn't gonna work. So we made this fabric stretchy. So it's a little bit it has a little bit of stretch, but it's thick. And the other thing, like this is a detail that I couldn't find on anything, and this will sound odd to many people, but I find button-down collars effeminate. Not like deeply effeminate, but like the ones that have the button right here.
Oh yeah.
It feels like you're like worried. It looks worried. To me, it looks like did mommy say that you had to wear it that way so that your collar wouldn't go off? You don't want to have it looks very like kind of anal. You know, it's like, oh, the collar can't go away from the thing. You know, it just looks really just stuffy and uptight.
Or Catholic.
Yeah. It's just, but all the guys have. That's like the trend. Most of the shirts that are like this, or even just general shirts, have those button-down collars because I mean, obviously it's like plug and play. Men don't have to think about it, and they won't have to think about it. But I mean, there's something about like, okay, don't be afraid to have a collar. And then these I actually, because I like it, and I think they're a little sexier, is that I had maybe an extra half inch or quarter inch added to the side of the collar because a lot of the collars that they cut now are a bit short, like as far as their width. Like they run a little short and they feel like, again, like kind of tight and anal. And I like a little bit, I'm not going to go with a super wide 70s like disco collar, but it's a little closer to that. Like it's a little bit like this. It's meant to be worn open and have some like air to it, and feel like it feels comfortable and confident, like more than like kind of like prissy, so that was what stipulation. That's kind of one of my innovations on this shirt that not a lot of people will have out there, but that's just my particular thing. But see, it kind of frames the face differently. It's a different look. But I guess, like I said, 90% of dudes would never even think of that or notice it. But because I have a refined taste, I'm like, no. Well, but it's the way that you would look at a gun and be like, I hate it when they have that thing on the end of the thing, like da-da-da, it looks fucking stupid. Like there's all, or like dudes with cars, like those rims are trash. Like that kind of thing. Like men have these advanced, because this is what it is. It's really just, it's not like caring about something that you shouldn't care about. It's developing an advanced vocabulary.
Yes.
For something. And that's all it is. It's like you have a vocabulary in this area and you didn't have one before. And that's all it is. And like once you have the advanced vocabulary, and I said the advanced taste, like I like this. Like not a lot of people
spoke
would
about
ever
this
think about the collars.
We spoke about this with writing and how writing style emerges, and there'll be certain words that are tells for a certain writer. Or certain ways that you express yourself that's like, oh, that's I prefer to say this thing in this way. Right. But if you if you collected paragraphs from 4 random people and one from Jordan Peterson and one from Martin Heidegger, 10 times out of 10, anyone who knows Jordan Peterson or has read a sentence of Martin Heidegger would be able to pick out the Jordan Peterson and the Martin Heidegger paragraphs on style alone. They have that sense. They have that that personal taste in language. And as you were saying before, how you dress is its own kind of communication. Maybe not language, but communication.
The same way. I mean, it tells a story. You're telling a story about yourself with what you wear. And if, like I said, if you're like, I picked out, like I'm wearing things from Walmart that don't match. And not that it can't be bad. You can get some good stuff. I went and bought my wife beaters from Walmart the other day. But it's not about a status thing. It's about it's about intentionality.
Right.
Really, and there are dudes who don't want to look like they have an intentionality, like they don't care, and because
they
it's
want
like you said,
to look good by accident.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're kind of on the level with the guys who don't train to fight, but if they know that if they saw red, they would. It's that guy. Like, I don't have to think about it or train or do anything, but I'm just awesome the way I am. And some dudes are like that, but they're pretty rare. Most guys actually have to think about things. Is that a question that we got? I saw one pop in a little bit.
No, Mike Ronan jumped in to say, "I like that shirt. Looks sharp, outdoorsy, athletic cut, and would hide my pistol well."
I actually thought about that. I won't say that I thought about it in the design, but actually after I got it, I'm like, yeah, you wouldn't print. You'd have to work really hard to print in this. If you appendix carry or something.
That's another reason that thicker fabric is better than thinner fabric.
Exactly. You get some airy shirt that's blowing on around, that's going to print all over everything. This would definitely not print as much as a lot of other things would. And also, although one of the things I actually like wearing it open, like with a tank top or something under it too, it's kind of more comfortable that way. But But yeah, I don't know, where else should we go with this the style thing? There's so yeah. You thought?
Well, I mean, it's funny looking at the shirt because just this week I stopped wearing my company's the uniforms they gave me
Right.
because they were all polyester. They were going for that kind of sporty look, and they were just absolutely wrecking my skin, just destroying my back and shoulders in a
Yeah.
way I hadn't anticipated. Sorry about that. Um, uh, and so when I took one back to the office and they gave me some of their old uniforms that they had kind of cycled out. They're like, we're not really wearing these anymore, but we've got some extra ones that are all cotton, and they were the classic blue collar, that light kind of pale blue design, that thicker fabric, total button down, two breast pockets. They still have like the American flag on the shoulder, so it's like an era throwback in some ways.
Yeah.
Um, I think they look better. I think they look more. They look better on me. I think one of the things I've been told is that with my eye color, blue shirts kind of pop a little bit better,
Mm.
or match with my face. Um, so it's I like it's funny moving from this kind of stretchy athletic fit polo that doesn't have any breast pockets, which is not very tradesman like. You don't have a place to put like a couple wire nuts or a pen or a Sharpie or something. um it's an office worker look,
Right.
you know, and it's an office worker kind of functionality, because functionality is not completely irrelevant to style. And
No.
maybe this is a dovetail with the whole Carhartts conversation. The ridiculousness of a barista wearing like a freaking Carhartt duck jacket is like, it's so absurdly superfluous. You
Yeah.
know, why are you wearing this dense, super heavy duty denim water resistant jacket when you literally work inside? You know,
Yeah.
like I have a jacket like that. It's got a few holes in it from like where I was working outside in 5 degrees, freaking,
Yeah.
um, but like, but the functionality seems to it's not it's a bare minimum, of course. Like style is not only functionality. I think that's where a lot of men instinctively go wrong, but betraying functionality can also make you look ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. And also like I'm with that like fashion wise, everyone got to really tired of cargo pants because it was supposed to be like, oh, they're so passe and whatever. But I'm cargo pants till I die. I need those pockets. I have things. I want to carry stuff around, and like especially when I'm going out and taking pictures or whatever. I mean, that's where lens caps go and like stuff. You know, like there's things I put in it were phones because that's another thing is like we all have phones now, right? And people walk around with their phones all the time, and phones print. So if you have these tight jeans on with like no pockets aside from the top pockets, you have this big phone tumor that's in your that like everyone can see is in the front of your thing. So like for me personally, like having cargo pants or something like that, like I could put that in there and that their phone's just in there and you can't see it. You
Right.
know, like rather than this big printed thing. You know, but and I think a lot of people move towards more streamlined things, like even like for wallets, people have like a card in a like one or two cards, or their cards are just on their phone or something. But I don't know. I think I don't really trust all that, and so like I still have a wallet and things like that. There are
Same.
all these kind of details, like like you said, things that should be functional. You don't want to lose function. I always had this is one of the best things anyone's ever said to me. It was just a guy that I knew, who had read my books and stuff like that. So, he knew who I was or was trying to be or whatever. And he said that I should always look like I could go do something.
Yes.
And I think that's for most men, that's gonna be that that's gonna be something that you have to consider. Like, part of looking masculine is going to be like, I could go actively do something right now. Like, if I had to, like, yes, I might be wearing nice clothes, but I could, if I had to run down the street or do something physical, I could do that. And that's why I like
have we brought up previously on the show the one fashion rule at Wolfgang and Ritual?
Oh no, but we can do that. We might have at some point, but I have this thing that I don't let people come to Ritual. I mean, I've never had anyone try to break it where we have to keep them out or anything, but I make it known that we don't do Ritual in shorts. And a lot of people are taken aback by that because they're like, it's hot. And I'm like, shut up, baby. Like grown men wore pants, like wool pants in the middle of the summer, like 100 years ago.
I was wearing Carhartts and like full length freaking 9-inch leather boots in a 140-degree attic last week. So like we can wear long pants in like warm weather. And
the reason for this is because now I'm wearing shorts right now. I wore shorts today. I mean, I live in a place that it's 115 degrees, whatever. And I mostly go to the gym, and that's most of my life. But men don't look authoritative in shorts. I mean, and we have guys in our group that are like, they'll bring up the Rhodesians or whatever, like they'll bring up military squads. I'm like, okay, if you're carrying guns, we can have a talk about that. But if you're carrying guns and you're in an elite military unit, okay, we can talk about that.
Foul, and then like you override your shortcoming.
If we have like, I mean, like Michael Baldwin's has done the same thing. I mean, he's like, I think he said, or maybe not, but something. I'm pretty sure he's gone to battle in shorts. I think he's actually been in firefights or something in shorts, or like flip flops or something ridiculous. And they did a lot of that in the Middle East. I've read about it and stuff that they were just like doing their thing. They're out all day and it's hot, and they're like, okay, let's go, it's go time. And so they just do their job, right? But if you're doing a thing that is of importance, and I guess this dovetails into another conversation we can have, but if you're doing something that's supposed to be solemn or important or meaningful, I think that men just look a lot more authoritative if they're wearing pants. And society used to agree on this because the only people who wore shorts were little boys. Up until a certain point, like you had like little boys had these little knicker things, and then when you became a man, you wore pants. Like that was what everyone used to do, and now everybody wears shorts. So maybe that's the infantilizing of our fucking society. But like I'm not against shorts for practical stuff in everyday life. But what happens if you have a bunch of guys in shorts standing around doing a ritual? You look like you're at a church picnic. Is what it ends up looking like. You look like you're at like, oh, Billy Bob came over to have some hot dogs. It doesn't look deep and momentous. It doesn't look powerful. He doesn't look serious, and so like that's one of the rules that I've had for that. That's a good dovetail into what clothing does and what it matters. And I was just having this discussion last night
because the effect is powerful enough with just an individual, but if you have a whole bunch of people, it's magnified by the number of people there.
Oh, totally. And if there's, which one of these things is not like the other to a certain extent, you have, like big print shirts. I'm actually going to go, and it's like, unless there are, whatever on brand, I'm going to be like, if you're wearing like a big message shirt, like that says a big thing, like I don't care if it's Bob's Auto Parts or some political thing or whatever, that takes people out of the moment. Like it should be, so but that's for ritual. I mean, we're talking for most of the guys who are watching this is more for regular life.
Right.
But one of the points I was going to make, and I think Tanner makes this a lot too, is the best example of what I'm talking about is when you imagine going to a symphony in sweatpants, and imagine going to a symphony where everyone's wearing a tuxedo. You are going to have two entirely different experiences. The symphony could be equally as good. That doesn't change. But think about how much different everyone would feel. That what kind of event that is. You know, a whole bunch of people rolling in sweatpants, like looking at their phones, whatever, like screwing around, or like people who spend hours getting ready to go to the symphony. The intentionality in that is so different.
I've been to the opera twice in Seattle, and both times I decided to wear a black suit with a black button-up shirt, black tie, black cummerbund. It felt great to be able to go out there and to see all these other people dressed up, and like black underneath black. It still conveys suit in a subtle way. Like you can see the outline of the tie and everything. But it's definitely different than what the normal suit look. So it still has personality, but you're appropriate for the event. And other people had their own weird things. Like you had some interesting colored suits, a lot of like maroon suits, which is its own interesting, neat look. But mostly black, of course, and the women had their own variety. And yeah, like the idea of going to a place like that, if you see just a couple of kids in like graphic tees and doing some kind of ironic dressing down thing, it would take you out of the moment. It would completely, it would kind of, in a way, kind of ruin it.
My favorite phrase for that is "you're degrading my experience."
Yeah.
like basically, like because I've used that with ritual and other things like that. But it's like if other people there are present are not serious about the thing, we're not on the same page about what we're doing and what kind of experience we want to have. Then yeah, they're degrading everybody else's experience by what they're doing. So it's just. But I guess the point of this and how it relates to life is how much what you wear affects your experience of things. You know, the fact that you, like you said, you wore a suit to the opera and it felt right. It was like the right thing to do, and it changed your experience that you're going to have.
Right.
And the same thing is true of if you're dressing up at something that is uncomfortable and doesn't feel like you.
Yeah.
You know, it's just you're just trying to like check a box or something like that that just feels really wrong. Honestly, like I went when I spoke in Poland. I had a custom suit made for that. I mean, not like super expensive, but like through one of those companies where you take your measurements online or whatever. So a few $100s, but not like crazy. And so I had a custom suit made. And that was what I was going to wear on stage. And I put it on stage. I put it on before getting on stage, and I was like, "This is not who I am." I didn't wear it. I wore something else. I was like, "This is not me. This is not like who I am on stage. This is not whatever." I was trying a thing, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should try that and see what I'm like." This isn't who I am, and it just didn't feel right. And I mean, it was obviously it fit well. It was like whatever at the time. It was perfect for me and whatever. But it was just not who I was. Yeah. And so I think that's it's really about, like I said, finding like knowing yourself, but also not being afraid to challenge yourself and try new things. You know,
right. Well, and it reminds me of two quotes too. This whole subject and the authenticity thing reminded me of the second quote. The first quote, we were talking about the opera and going to a symphony, and it reminded me of that Joseph Campbell quote where he says, "Life is an opera, except that it hurts." And so the best we can do is to try to play this game in a decent fashion. But imagine the opera is not just the opera house, and then you step out of the opera house and you can go back to life. But what if all of life is that opera? You know, what you bring on your person in not just your level of fitness and your level of excellence and how you present yourself changes the experience of the commons of everyone around you. And you are a part of that commons that you are experiencing. You are a part of your own environment. Which remind me of the Joe Rogan line about imagine your body is this car that you can build yourself. Do you want a straight 4 or do you want a V8? How much suspension do you want to have? Now it'll take some work to build that car you want.
Right.
But and he was of course talking specifically about the body, but it applies psychologically to how you present yourself to yourself. You know, a part of the attraction of a car is the appearance of it. People want that Porsche 911 because not only is it fun to drive, but you're going to get looks from other people. And in a Porsche 911, unlike a Bugatti or a Ferrari or something, you're going to get looks from car people. Bugattis and Ferraris will get looks from everybody, but like car people will look at Porsche 911. So like you and you see other people seeing you. And when you get into that car, you're seeing the car as you get into it. Well, you are a vehicle as well. What kind of car are you driving in your clothing and in your appearance that you're conveying?
Yeah, like you said, your body is a really good point too, because obviously, like, I mean, I think actually I had this conversation with Tanner one time because I did progress pictures. It was when I was doing getting close to like one of my goal weeks in bodybuilding type stuff, and so I'd show up because I was doing progress pictures with Flash because I'm a nerd. I don't have that set up to do that anymore, but I'd show up and I'd be taking the first shots in what I rolled out of bed to get there in. It looked like a homeless person. I'm like here. I'm in like a sweatshirt and like whatever pants I was wearing and like a t-shirt and goofy shoes and like probably Crocs, and it whatever a hat, and I look like just a schmuck. But these are these flash pictures of this, but it's just me testing focus and all this stuff to get my setup going. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm shirtless and I have abs and I'm like jacked, and it's like best shirt is no shirt. There's a level where best shirt is no shirt. But not everyone can walk around that way anyway.
I remember,
and that's really changed in modern times because that was not a thing. People didn't have that body, especially over, they'd have it at like 22. But but people didn't have that body in their 30s and 40s and 50s. But now that is a status symbol, and we've talked about that in the group and other things. I think Dustin brought it up the other day. It's like being extremely fit is a status symbol in itself, and then when you said that is the car that you're inhabiting, which that communicates all kinds of things by itself, and then what coat are you putting on that? Does that communicate the same things? And that influences your whole body environment in the way that I've often joked, because if I look a certain way, people respond to me in a certain way. People respond to me like I'm scary sometimes, and I'm like not really that scary, but like people respond to me like just because like I look like I work out, but yeah, I mean there's all of these things are communication. They'll all say something about you, and like you said, they do affect you as well. Like you're part of that system.
Yeah, like I make a point to. For these conversations, I put on pants. Not everybody has to. I didn't always in the past. I just noticed that for me personally, it made a difference. You get into a different state of mind when you put on pants, that for particularly serious things, I'll put on cologne, even if no one's going to be there. You know what I mean? like for a video call, I will do that because it adds a sense of seriousness to myself. That obviously someone on the other side of a camera isn't going to experience, but that's not the target audience in that case.
Yeah, and sometimes, I mean, honestly, that's actually a good point. And actually, we did have a comment, either on X or on, I think Instagram maybe. One guy asked me for more books, more reading on this aside from Tanner Goods' book, and I can't really think of one specifically. I'm sure there are some decent ones, especially for more formal menswear or whatever. But like, we're in such a world right now where anything really goes, that you can kind of negotiate that world in your own way. But it's just more like the basic rules of, like, like the stripes and all that kind of stuff.
I don't want to recommend these guys too highly, but as far as different strokes being for different folks, and as far as getting people into the mindset of style and fashion and taking your own appearance seriously, some of the pickup artists of the 20 teens had some interesting thoughts. You go back and listen to Mystery, you go back and listen to like Owen Cook, aka Tyler Durden from Real Social Dynamics, and Julian Blanc. I think Neil Strauss had some comments about it in his book as well. Like, they had some very interesting comments on. If I remember correctly, Tanner Goosey had some funny observations about the pickup artists. He said, it's funny seeing these guys take these very rakish appearance like looks and pulling it off because it was congruent with their own character. But then they'd be teaching their students at these conferences to try these things, and the students would just look ridiculous. They'd right. like do some peacocking thing with some like really weird shirt, and it wore them. They were just right. not pulling it off at all. But these things are you and your own style seem to be symbiotic relationships that you sort of grow into over time. You can't just put it on in one day and right. Now it's your style. It's like, no. You try things out, and half of the style seems to be the comfort with which you wear it. There was, I think, a James Bond line where in Casino Royale, where Daniel Craig's character is speaking to the chick, and the chick says, you wear that suit with contempt. Then she was psychoanalyzing the way he wore the suit, and it does come out in an interesting way. Like, how comfortable are you in the clothes you're wearing? If you're wearing a suit and you're not comfortable in it, it shows. And maybe
you look awkward. True. You move awkward. You move awkwardly, and you see, and you, if you feel self-conscious, you radiate that. So like it's all, but obviously there's a little bit of fake it to make it with things. Like, you got to try something new and then see how you feel in it. But something can become your style that you didn't think was.
Right.
But it just takes some experimentation.
That discomfort is not just a suit thing. If you put a Silicon Valley kid in a wife beater and a like what he might consider a like trashy look, they're going to feel self-conscious and not confident in that way as well.
Well, and there's so many social languages that go with this stuff too that I wouldn't even know like what like a Zoomer would think like is stupid, like or what or in what clique. In what clique that he's in with because so much of this is social cliquishness too, and that's one of the things that I never liked about. I'm glad you brought up Bond, because that's a point I've made a few times, is that there's a character. I mean, he's described basically even in the books, I think, as a cultured thug. And like he's the highly cultured, like sophisticated thug, and his job is violence, and everything else is kind of like But he knows he's learned how to do all the things and inhabit that, and so like James's Bond is always known as a very stylish character, I've bought things. Actually, Oiler Bar Brown. I wore it on stage a couple times. Oiler Bar Brown is licensed to make 007 replica clothes, and I found it. And there's like I have the Doctor No toweling Terry toweling shirt. And I wore that. It was not inexpensive, but like it's licensed. But it was like a faithful replica of the thing. Probably is in nicer fabric, to be honest, than it was in the '60s. But and again, making a visual reference. But he's always been kind of a style icon, and that's something that in America we don't really have because, or as much, this masculinity and style together.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I think one of the reasons for that is that we don't have an aristocracy. And in the sense that like the aristocracy, I mean, this Kipling era, like thing that's been going on for a long time where you served in the military, but were from a wealthy family. And so you learned poetry, you learned fine literature, you knew what suit to wear, you knew what cocktails to order, you knew all the things that a sophisticated gentleman knows.
Yeah.
But you also know how to kill people. And that was, and you've been to war, and maybe you've been on safari in Africa or whatever. You know how to live in a masculine way and inhabit that masculine space. But you also know a lot of details about the finer things in life. And in America, there's a kind of a classist thing, whereas if you know the finer things in life, it means you're a pussy. And if you don't know the finer things in life, that means you're like just some working class piece of garbage that like upper class people don't like, like that.
Right.
And I feel like in Europe there's a little bit of a better marriage of masculinity and style.
Oh, and there seems to be in Europe less tension between the two. I mean, fashion still moves, but there's a timelessness to style and to those aristocratic expectations. Whereas I heard it said in France, if you're running for political office, you put on a suit. In the United States, if you're running for political office, you take off your suit. You put on your plaid shirt, roll up your sleeves like George Bush Jr.
There was this great quote in this. We were watching this show. I think it might have been called The Judge or something like that. But The Justice or something like that. But there's a quote, and it was a mobster making it in it. But he was like a sophisticated mobster who ran like a hotel or whatever. And his son was dressing up. He was trying to, is in a suit and tie and whatever, trying to look like the part of the next in line, trying to make his bones and make his way up. And his dad took him aside and he's like, "That's a good look for you. I like what you're doing there. I see what you're doing. I like it." I find men only wear ties when they have to. When I don't wear a tie because it shows that I don't have to, and I don't have to do anything. So he wore a suit and jacket and looked nice, but he didn't wear ties because ties are something that men wear because they're told to. And no one tells me anything, basically. And I was like, that is a nice point. I like that, because it's kind of true. It's kind of a ridiculous little thing to strangle you with, but martial arts wise, it seems like a terrible idea. But it's I thought that was a really interesting point of communication, of what style communicates. And really to our point of what we're talking about what you wear communicates something about you. And I'd never heard that point made before, but I thought it was like, oh, that's nice. And and you see that a lot too. I mean, there's a big thing with that these days in terms of I always used to hear that in LA. It's like if someone walks into the expensive restaurant and in jeans and a t-shirt, it means they have a lot of money. They don't need to care because they have whatever. They just roll up in their Bentley.
There was actually a Robert Ludlum novel, one of the Bourne the books, not the movies, where Jason Bourne is shopping for suits, and he's just been he's just been left out for dry. He woke up. He doesn't know where he is, but he happens to speak French in the appropriate dialect to pass himself off, like in a reasonably aristocratic fashion. And because the owner of the suit store noticed that this character in torn up jeans and a shirt is looking at the suits, but he is not looking at the price tag. That's the tell that those combination of things conveys exactly who Bourne is not, but who he is caricaturing and accurately representing himself to be, or inaccurately, but compellingly.
Right.
He has the confidence to wear the torn up shirt and jeans well.
Yeah.
So it was a funny similar point. Yeah, shoot. Let me see if we have any comments. Nick is asking, is that a Negroni?
It is a. I brought 3/4 of a bottle of Aperol back with me from the trip, which is I was drinking Aperol yesterday, and I mixed it with this weird Agua Fresca Modelo thing that Lucio had because we should have champagne to go with the Aperol now, but we did not have it before we started the show. He was supposed to get that while I was doing the show. So no, it's not a Negroni, but it's kind of a close thing. But
it's funny that that's become your drink and your known drink.
Yeah, I mean that's part of my personal style. Like people are like, oh well, that's Jack likes Negronis. He did it, or probably an Aperol spritz. It's a later occasion. There's other things I like too, but it's just signature. And it's like I said, because I've tried a lot of things, and that's what I actually want. I would never probably drink anything else if I thought it was a good idea to drink Negronis all the time, which you shouldn't because it's basically a martini. And about 4 of those, and you're pretty far gone. So you got to watch that, and I don't need it in the house all the time. But yeah, no, I think all these things can be. I mean, just in the way that a watch is a signature thing, or is people order certain things. Like at restaurants, like this is what you can become known for that if you go out with certain people all the time. Like, oh, he's gonna get this. Like that's who he is. Or people who men who smoke cigars. Is another a thing that's a whole style thing that people acquire.
Watches are another one that it can be a rabbit hole without end. I think I wrote a Substack some months ago. I'll have to go back and revisit it, but it was about it was a little bit about this question of pretense versus the reality. What do we communicate? And it was inspired by this Sylvester Stallone ad, because I guess he's selling one of his watches. It's this Patek Grandmaster chime watch. It's it was like a $3 million watch, something like that. The most expensive watch in the world. And he was explaining to it, and he shared this little anecdote of walking down the street, and he happened to be wearing a Rolex at the time. And just a random stranger caught his eyes, like, wow, nice watch. And Sylvester Stallone was like, well, thanks. It's and he's like, how much that watch cost you? And Sylvester Stallone said, oh, it's probably about $10,000 or so, maybe 11. He's like, wow, my watch cost me $5, and we have the same time. And Sylvester Stallone was like, well, that's the point, isn't it? It's not about just keeping the time. It's about conveying to other people and to yourself a certain degree of where you are in life, and keeping time in your life and not just over the course of the day. And it was a nice little philosophical vignette about fashion and style, and maybe it's not worth spending, $10,000 on a watch, especially if you don't have that money to spend. But it might be worth, getting a little bit of a nicer watch, if only as a reminder to take yourself more seriously.
Interesting.
and with watches, as with clothing, as with tools and cars and everything else. And again, this is not a therefore go and break your budget to appear cooler and richer than you are.
Which
But
is
it
a
is
thing that a lot of people do, because the Rolex thing is a big thing. Although,
yeah.
I forget who told me this, but I think that was a special forces thing. Is that it's actually good to have a Rolex because you can trade them, because everyone knows what they are. So if you're wearing a Rolex and you need to get out of a bad situation, you could use a Rolex to create money. Basically, like which is a really cool idea. I mean, like anywhere in the world, people know what a Rolex is. And so like, okay, you can sell that, or maybe just have it stolen from you. I don't know. But but yeah, I mean that's an interesting thing. And the interesting thing about watches too is that, I mean, it is a highly stylized thing, but it's also kind of anachronistic. I mean,
Yes.
are you going to carry a watch and your
way.
phone at the same time? Your phone carries the fucking your phone has the time on it too.
There's a gun guy named Lucas Botkin who was advocating the wearing of analog watches precisely because we're carrying our phones all the time. He says, here's a way where you can get into the habit of checking your time, because so much of our checking our phones is this impulsive, like we think we're checking our time, but we're really like wondering if we have any notifications, and it can be kind of rude, especially if you're in a meeting or talking to someone, to look at your phone. It is less rude to look at your watch, and if you can train yourself to look at your watch a little bit more, you can begin to kind of detox your mind from the phone addiction and the temptation to be constantly looking at that. That was part of his idea, is that he's coming from a more business executive, formal context, not checking your phone when you're in meetings constantly mindset. But I think it does apply if you've got any kind of social, customer facing, or even coworker facing job where you might wind up in conversations for 15 minutes and need to keep track of the time at the same time.
Yeah, that's possible.
And it's also, I began to take an interest in deciding to wear a watch 2 years ago. I've been listening to Scott Adams, and Scott Adams had been playing around with AI art image, something we've been talking about for a while. But he said in all of his AI art imagery that tried to create a more attractive version of himself, every single AI art generated image of him that was like more attractive had a watch on. And he never wore a watch. So AI art was giving him a watch in order to make him more attractive. And then so he started doing polls with women. It's like, does wearing a watch make a man more attractive? Universal answer, yes. He's like, does that still hold if it's a smartwatch? Universal answer, no. So that's just kind of a funny little anecdote. And I don't know why that is. Perhaps it's because it draws women's eyes to the forearms. Perhaps and just brings the eyes to that area of the body. Perhaps it's because it's anachronistic. It associates you. It invokes an association with an older time, where like men did not have 40% reduced testosterone levels or something. The anachronism has its own evocative sense to it.
Yeah. Well, this, it reminded me of one of my reasons for doing something, which people always thought there was some cool reason, and it was a visual reason. Was like, I used to wear cuffs all the time. Right now, I need to order some more because the ones I have don't match my shoes. But I guess that's how I think about things. But they're not quite the color that they're an off brown. I need to match my shoes. But that
just
I guess
just
that's
a little boot polish on it to darken it or something.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle. I was thinking I need a new pair, and I want them a little thicker. The ones I had before were a little thicker, and the last pair I got was a little thin. So I want it, but I always used to wear those cuffs, right? which is where a watch would go, which is also why I never got into watches, because I wore the cuffs all the time. That was kind of my trademark look.
Fair.
And I mean, you can get watches that go on cuffs, but that was really not what I was doing. And but one of the benefits of having something there, and if it's a big watch, this could be part of it. But I mean, these are a good 2 inches, I think, wide that I always wore. Is it shortens the arm? Because if you put something on the arm that's this big, it shortens the arm, it makes your forearms look bigger. Rather than making them look long and kind of spread out, it shortens them and makes them look shorter and thicker. So not that I have tiny forearms, pretty good forearms, but it's in terms of making you look a little bit more muscular. And so that was actually kind of my reason. My visual reason for that was because they shorten the forearm and the same. I guess I know a lot of rules that I never really thought about. I mean, that's not a rule. That's something I came up with. But anything that anytime you break, I guess that's the rule that we'd be the fashion rule that we'd be talking about would be, anytime you break something up, it looks shorter.
Makes sense.
Like if you put it in 3 pieces, it's going to look shorter still. And this goes with shoes, everything like that. Something else that I'll do, because I have shorter legs. I'm not a short guy. I'm like 5'10", but like because I'm a little stockier, and is that if you like a different color shoe, that breaks the line. Like that goes from your hip to your foot. A different color shoe makes you look a little shorter. Like if you have dark shoes and then like light pants, you look a little bit shorter. If your shoes are the same color as your pants, that line follows the whole way down.
Oh, okay.
So like that's a continuation of the line. It doesn't break it up visually, so it's all part of the same thing. So that's going to make you actually look a little taller, and make your legs look a little longer and a little taller. And so it's just little things like that, I guess, are rules that I forget that I know. But visually, yeah, speaking, I mean, they're really rules for art too, because it's just, you're talking about visual things. If you break up shapes in a certain way, they look smaller or bigger. And that is definitely something I do with myself, just because of the way I'm built. And I would recommend always for, especially anyone under 5'10", is to, if your shoes are the same color as your pants, you look a little taller. It continues the line straight down to the bottom rather than breaking it up. It's like whether if you had pants and then you're wearing shorts and then socks and that's like all these layers of things that you've just created that are going to make you look shorter. So it's just another one of those little details to think about. Same things would happen with your arms, like I said, with the cuffs. That was a unique thing for me. And same thing as if you had 3 stripes going up and down you, rather than like, okay, this is all the same color. You're going to look a little bit taller, a little bit longer, And some guys, if you're 6'5", and you have like a tall, lanky look, you may want to cut that down. Like you may I'm plenty tall. Like if you're 6'5", 6'8", or something like that, you may be like, I could stand to look a few inches shorter because, I look a little freakish maybe to a lot of people around me. I mean, there's a lot of benefits in being tall, but there's a certain height that you get to where it's like, okay, that you could look smaller, and so that's another thing that you could do, and that you could get away with different things, being that guy,
Elvis Presley says, personally, I would like to create a new aesthetic core casual wear. Like a mariachi, like in Desperado. I also think doing this helps get the juices flowing in the brain. I'm going to be honest, I don't totally understand the comment.
No, neither.
I'm the
Feel free to elaborate.
The appendage of core to things, whether it's metal genres or interior design aesthetic looks, it's always there's always its own interesting stylistic choice.
Yeah, which is totally different from like the
linguistic.
way I was thinking about it, which I was thinking like core is in like in the way this people say core memory. Like an aesthetic core. Like I mean, I have a pretty aesthetic. Like okay, this is the basic things that you're going to see me in.
The
And then
center,
there's
yeah.
other, yeah. Like a center. This is my like template that I'm working from or whatever. That's the way I thought of it immediately. But yeah, if you talk about hardcore or metalcore or whatever, grindcore. My favorite one actually, which is totally off topic, but somebody I thought it was hilarious. It was in Portland, and some girl was complaining about how weak dudes were there, and she called it mumblecore. Like she called their game mumblecore. Like I don't know. Do you want to? Like like mumblecore. I always thought that was fucking great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Alvis elaborates saying, "Getting the juices flowing for creativity."
Okay, so you're gonna wear a magic mariachi to outfit to get to get creative. I mean, it's not right. It's not wrong.
I mean, this feels like
But
it's
as you
fallen-
said,
yeah.
a ritual to get into something. Get people do that to get into a creative mode. Like I do X, Y, and Z to get into this space in the same way that I would do X, Y, and Z to get in a ritual. Dressing a certain way is a valid thing. Or like if you're going to go meditate, you wear a certain thing to go meditate. There are definitely people who do that. One thing that also came to mind that someone asked online was asked about colognes, which you mentioned, which I thought was interesting. And it's not a big thing, but it is an element of style because it comes, like becomes a signature thing. I have worn the same cologne for like 25 years. And I smell like Hugo Boss. Hugo Boss Sport. I've been wearing since like before, and there's a reference there that I'm sure you got, but I can honestly say that I liked that cologne before I even understood that reference. That was, we're talking like Jack, who worked at like Pottery Barn in San Francisco, went to Macy's and bought that for the first time. Like it had nothing to do with anything else Hugo Boss that we might think of.
Right.
But yeah, no, I just really like the way it smells on me specifically, and like to me, and to your point that you made, which no one really cares about it but me. It's actually it is for me. Like you said it, like you put it on, like no one you for a call, like that no one sees. Yeah, I actually do wear cologne actually for myself. Like I like the way it smells. I like to smell like that. I put it on. You're not really even supposed to, but no one's ever called me out on it. But like, I put it on before I go to jiu-jitsu. Like, because I'm sure everybody smells like enough gross shit after you've been sweating for 10 minutes. Like, I'm like, I want to be the guy who like smells better. I'd rather be the guy who smells better than who smells worse. So if it bugs you that I smell better, like well, you're weird. But yeah, it's always really suited me, and it's really just for me. Like like a guy I live with, like actually doesn't even like to smell stuff in the air like that. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like no one's. Yeah, it's not really for anyone but me. So that's an interesting thing that you brought up because I'm the same way about that. Like this is for me. Which is funny because like you had the pickup artist frame or whatever. Most people think that men wear cologne for women, and a lot of them do. But
so I actually don't wear the same cologne all the time.
I actually kind of knew where you were going to go with that. Go ahead. Yeah.
there's a cologne I wear, like just generally, and there's a cologne I will wear for fun, during certain times of the month. So like there's some different reasons call for different just different occasions might require different dress codes. In the same way, we'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Nice.
Daniel Levy says, also wear tapered shirts so you don't look sloppy. True.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, that's what I was saying about fit with a lot of things like the different. A lot of people like the t-shirts. I'm not really trying to advertise here as far as, but I literally was talking to somebody about this morning. Like we use like Bella and Canvas t-shirts, which a lot of people use. Like that's pretty standard now. They're the more athletic fit t-shirts, so they don't. But there's more like of a Walmart cut, and they're not really meaning to hate on Walmart, but that's just like there's like an all-American cut. Like this is the box shirt for fat people, and everything is cut like that, and this is all cut because they're assuming that you have a gut, like that protrudes outward, and that you need something bigger to cover it. And so if you don't have that, then you do. Yeah, like then it's hard to find things, but and it's better to find things that are fitted.
I never did this intentionally, stylistically speaking, but as a wearer of many Walmart flannel shirts, I think this is one. I have become one of those people with the wife beater underneath that shirt, and it is more comfortable to wear it unbuttoned, and with an undershirt, I think it's socially appropriate to wear it unbuttoned, and then you don't get that obnoxious drapey look. It's also just more comfortable. Jeremy was messing around editing a couple of shots of me with an AR-10 from a couple weeks ago, and it's not a bad look, I don't think.
Yeah.
Elvis Presley. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Good. No, read it.
Oh, Elvis Presley says, on a side note, I've been reading A Sky Without Eagles. I'm kind of confused on training for honor. Are we supposed to gain honor by training in the gym? That'll be cool. Well,
yeah. I mean, that's a sidebar, obviously, but I'll do that for real quick. I mean, I wrote that essay a long time ago. It's not really something I would say now. I probably should. I could probably sell T-shirts that say "Train for Honor" pretty well. Someone actually told me years ago. He's like, "You really need to come up with a "Train for Honor" shirt." But the way that was written in the article was like that. One of the reasons that you should train was basically so just you're not a piece of shit compared to all the people who came before you. It's basically the idea. So you're creating, so you're not dishonoring yourself by being disgusting and weak and pathetic. And that, I guess that still holds. I'm not really worried about personally, and people are different about this because people have different family lines and people like more or less concerned about their ancestry than I am. But, I mean, I'm not really worried about my ancestors think of me. That's not one of my and when I wrote that, I was probably more interested in that idea and around people who were more interested in the idea than I am now. I'm not really worried about that. I'm more worried about my contemporaries. So I'm much more concerned about but it still holds because if you
fair to say, all that shifted is who your honor group is, but the principle is the same.
Exactly. So I mean, I guess that is true. Because really, I like that framing. Maybe I'll like that essay more now. No, I think I mean, obviously the value that you get for going out in public looking a certain way versus if you were super out of shape and weak, whatever. I mean, it's obvious you are gaining honor. Really, you're gaining the esteem of men who notice that. So I mean, that's like I said, maybe I'll reframe that or like I don't know. Like it's a good point. So I hope I think I answered your question and maybe mine.
Train for honor and maybe also dress for honor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what is when I talk about honor, it's what it really is the esteem of other men in your peer group, like men who are in the circle of men whose opinions you value.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't care about everybody's opinion, but the kind of men whose opinion you value, like what would they think about it? I actually said something like this the other day, and this was just about saying things, but it applies to everything. In fact, I make a lot of decisions just visually and stuff. I mean, I would play with certain things a little more, but like I have a lot of guys that I really respect who follow me in different areas who I'm like, oh, but this guy's really cool. I'm like, what would he think about if I, like did that or said that? Like I was going to say something pretty crass the other day and I'm not mad about it. Like I that's how I feel. But I can think of a handful of guys that who I really respect their opinion, and they would just like, they would just like give me like a hard frown on it. Like they wouldn't like unfollow me and be dramatic because they're not those kind of guys. But like, it was just like one of those things. Like I was gonna make fun of the crybaby groups that we make fun of all the time, all those men's cry groups. And I was going to say, well, like, the everybody's always saying the male suicide rate is so high, but perhaps it should be higher. Like, I feel like if you have to go to the male cry groups, you should pull your ass out of the gene pool. But I also know a lot of guys who are former cops and whatever, and military guys who've had their friends shoot themselves, and like it's a little bit of a touchy subject, and I'm like, I don't want to. I was like, I'll skip that.
We're not talking about you. We're talking about a different kind of guy.
Yeah,
they would be misplaced on the internet, not because his best friend got shot. Like, but yeah. I know what you mean.
But there's a sensitivity there, because it's an honor thing. Like it's like right. I respect them enough that I'm like a little sensitive to their opinion.
Right. And Alvis says thanks for. Sorry for sidetracking the video. Now that we've kind of delved into it, I'm not sure it really was a sidetracking. Because I think back on my time in the military, right? And the care you take in your uniform. I still carry a lighter with me, not because I smoke, but because if there's a piece of string hanging off my shirt, I cauterize it rather than cutting it because it keeps everything tighter and doesn't lead to more, we call it gear drift. I was polishing my boots yesterday. Now the reason I polish my Georgias is not to impress the CEO. It's in hopes that my Georgias will last a little bit longer. Because they get kind of banged up and stuff, and you rub a little bacon grease on it every like couple months. Polish them every like 2 to 3 weeks. They stay waterproof better. You prolong their life, but it is a little bit of pride and appearance, and there is a different appearance to well taken care of boots as opposed to boots where the front part of the leather is basically worn off to the steel toe, which I've seen guys walk around in sometimes. I guess technically OSHA safe, but it's a different look. Probably not waterproof. So like, and that pride and appearance in the military is a source of collective honor. You are representing the group by your appearance. So you take pride in your appearance because you take pride of your identity within the group. And if you don't take pride in your appearance, if you don't shave well, if you don't do your laundry, if you don't iron, if you don't polish your boots, at least in boot camp, everyone after boot camp sort of realizes it's a little bit exaggerated, the intensity with which you care for these things. But still, there are still expectations with the uniform care presentation, especially if you get into like the guards for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and things like that. It's not just, oh, I'm doing this because I have to. They do have to, but they're doing it because they take pride in it and they want to honor their fallen comrades, and they want to convey that honor in their own appearance in a martial context. And so I think gaining honor by training is not so conceptually dissimilar from gaining honor by taking some pride in your appearance. One of the things I was talking about with Corey yesterday, we were going over Aristotle's list of virtues, which is an interesting list of virtues because one of his virtues is magnificence. He lists that as a virtue. Another one is pride. In Christianity, you'll hear pride goeth before the fall. In Aristotelian virtue ethics, pride is a virtue, or at least can be. And of course, I'm sure there's a mean between some extremes that we have to navigate and not exhibit hubris. But taking pride in your work, in the sort of way that, or in your appearance, in sort of the way that a Mike Rowe might advocate, I think is a virtue. And a source of honor in the way that Elvis Presley is talking about, not just in training, but in personal style and self presentation.
Yeah, and it's we always talk about becoming the best version of what you are, becoming what you are, and it's an elaboration on a theme. Basically, you are the theme, and you're elaborating on the theme. Like, how big does this get? Like, how distinctive is it? And like I said, what does the character look like? What is he wearing? What does he drive? What is he, like that? All those things come together into like creating a really a distinctive individual, a distinctively memorable individual. Now, there's some tactical things about people who don't want to be memorable for a lot of reasons, but like for the rest of us, if you're trying to be a man of accomplishment and worth in the world, being distinctive, it goes a long way. People do notice, you could just fly by on just being great at something or whatever. But if you're great at something and distinctive, that's different. It's just a level up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a funny line in Nassim Taleb's Skin in the Game where he's contrasting two hypothetical surgeons in a thought experiment. He says, if you need to undergo a surgery and you see two surgeons with an equal reputation, they are viewed as equal by the establishment, and one of them is clean cut, is wearing his suit and stuff, and is looking as a doctor and surgeon should look, speaks very well, communicates clearly, is kindly, and the other surgeon he describes as looking like a butcher. He's kind of slovenly. He's got some aftershave. He probably smokes cigarettes on his breaks, just like some Eastern European mobster looking surgeon. He says you should take the butcher looking surgeon. You should trust him more, because if they have equal reputations, then the guy who has achieved a degree of that reputation based on his appearance is almost certainly is likely to be less competent as a surgeon than the guy who achieved that degree of success and reputation in spite of his appearance. Which is an interesting observation. It's probably mathematically correct, according to Nassim Taleb, who's a better mathematician than I am. But it is a roundabout way of saying you will be looked upon better if you look nicer. If that butcher-looking surgeon took the time to convey this in appearance-wise, that he would not after that have an equal reputation with the other surgeon. He would have a much better reputation.
Yes.
So it's a weird kind of backwards way of looking at the same principle.
No, it makes sense.
And Daniel Levy says, how you look and present yourself is sending a message to everyone you come in contact with. Don't be fat and sloppy. True.
Yeah. And obviously that goes down to a whole bunch of other stuff too. It's your communication skills, your grooming. That's a whole different subject. But it's just little details of things, and all this is details. Really, like all these little details. But like before I came on the show tonight, and I don't always do this because sometimes I just look more like a lumberjack. But there are these blades that they're like single serving blades, like that you have a handle that you can use to clean up the line of your beard. And it's basically you can do yourself what a barber does with a straight razor at the end of your thing, where it's like you're like, and the difference in grooming and appearance that I have with that, or with I have a little scruff growing up the side of my face right here, is so dramatic. It is so weird. It is like two different people. It is like homeless Jack, or like, oh my, like I'll be like, I look pretty good today, and it's just literally like it's a 1 minute thing. I just put a little shaving cream on those areas, and then just make the lines clean, to a razor level, and it's like night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
and not to be, we're going on 2 hours here, but it just occurred to me we didn't bring up maybe the most famous and fun example of hygiene in action. Do you remember the story of the complaint of English landowners when the Vikings settled in northern England? I seem to recall a historical complaint. This is about the 8th or 9th century, of English landowners complaining vehemently to their king that all the Viking men were sleeping with English women, and this was happening because the Viking men were like washing regularly and combing their beards, and they actually stated the hygiene as a causal role in this like cross-cultural infidelity. It's just an amusing little historical anecdote from the past.
Nice.
I'd have to double check my historical references there. Someone in the comments, I'm sure, will catch us up on that after the fact. But
right.
Yeah, that's not, of course, the primary reason to dress properly and to take pride in your appearance, and to learn the language of style. But it might be a nice perk if you're in the market.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, that's obviously their whole their whole guys who specialize in like, here's what you wear, and all the things you do to attract X kind of woman, which is a different thing. I think everything we're talking about is more just for general, like, who do you want to be? Like,
Right.
Who do you want to be, and are you communicating who you want to be visually?
Well, man, there's always a danger in our wrap-ups of opening up another can of worms, because it was fascinating for me to watch the pickup artist world evolve from 2014 or so through to 2020. Because it began with a bunch of gimmicks. It began with a bunch of tricks. Here's the line to say. Here's the thing to wear. Here's the thing to do with your body. These are the little hacks. These are little tricks that will get women to be interested in you. And these gimmicks and tricks that worked, as Tanner Guzzi was saying, with style, with the pickup artists themselves, the instructors at these conferences, for some reason didn't always work with the students. Right. And so the instructors had to reverse engineer. Okay, well, they're not coming at it with the right attitude. So it's not about the trick. It's about the way you say it. And they kept stepping back and back. And at the very bottom of basically all of pickup artistry, and this is what Julian Blanc and Owen Cook have become recently. They're basically gurus for who's the now guy, Eckhart Tolle. They're like they've gone hardcore spiritualism. They're all about like being present in this abundance mindset, and it's all about being authentic. And it's like what began as chasing girls came full circle back to no, it's not about girls at all. It's about being authentic, and that's actually how you get girls. But it's not even about that anymore. So it's as if chasing after girls was the beginning of the path back to what perhaps men should have been focusing on from the beginning.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's generally speaking, not always. I mean, there's going to be different details, especially culturally, but it's about who you are. Like if you're a really confident, like obviously confident, like well developed, distinctive personality man, like who seems like he's has his shit together and like knows what's going, like that's, you don't have to come up with little cute things to say. Like I mean, you still have to have conversational skills and whatever, but you don't really become that guy without developing a lot of that. Yeah, so it's all about that self-development thing and becoming, I can tell you what to wear to make you look like your shoulders are a little broader, but if you just made them broader, that would also be better.
Yeah, do some don't.
Yeah. I mean, like we could give you little tricks, and it's almost like the most ridiculous thing. Like I'm sure you've seen them just because they're absurd, but it's been a thing for many, many years. It's like fads over decades, but like they have like latex undergarments that you can wear that like kind of like suck you in a little bit. Like so you look like you're more in shape than you are, and like think about the kind of dudes who's wearing that. like there are a lot of other problems that indicates. Like that's like there's one thing about being
don't be Archduke Ferdinand.
Yeah.
Who might have survived had he not been wearing a corset, a women's corset, to suck his belly in a little bit.
Oh, really? Wow.
It was a survivable gunshot wound, but the doctors could not get the corset off easily.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's a fun story.
So don't as was said previously, don't be fat and sloppy for the sake of the world.
For the sake of
not just for yourself.
Wow.
A side joke, but
that's funny. That's funny. Cool. Well, if you listening now or listening later, because a lot of people are going to listen to this later, have any more questions or comments or thoughts or things that you wanted me to elaborate on, Chris kept trying to give you rules for things, but like I said, that they're so like part of my being that like it's hard to like what is this a rule? Oh well, yeah, that's right. Everybody doesn't know that. Like if you have any more questions like that, I'd be happy to elaborate on them, especially if you're in our Discord group. We don't have stuff in there every day. Because honestly, the first men is where I spend all my time. We're talking all the time. But if you drop a question in the Discord group, I or somebody else, and probably me, will eventually get to it. It might take a couple days. Can't check it as much. But if you put a question in the Discord group, I'll respond to the question and I'll tell you what I think. That's kind of the point of being the Discord group. There is that I can then kind of give you a little more depth on things in the show. So yeah, but yeah, let's wrap it up before we go into another rabbit hole as we do. But that's where these shows come from, and also if you want to drop us a line as to what you'd like to see us explore next. This is a little out of our normal wheelhouse, but something I know a lot about. I don't know. Pretty soon we'll have to have CD talk about electric. But we have some expertises and different things, but we're really supposed to be talking about solar culture and developing that. So and I may have some thoughts about that soon. But anyway, all right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until next time, stay solar.
Stay solar.